So here's a question for you. We hear all the time about removing a prime minister or a minister, right? But what about the person who literally runs the show inside Parliament? Can you actually fire the referee?
And believe it or not, this isn't just some hypothetical debate. A recent no-confidence motion has put the Speaker of India's Lok Sabha right in the spotlight. It's got everyone taking a much closer look at what is, without a doubt, one of the most powerful and most protected jobs in our entire democracy.
Okay, so before we can even talk about how you'd remove a speaker, we've got to get a handle on what they actually do. Why is this job so important? Let's break down the role of Parliament's ultimate referee. Well, in a nutshell, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is the presiding officer of India's lower house. You can think of them as the conductor of this huge, sometimes chaotic orchestra that we call Parliament. Their number one job? Make sure the debates are orderly and that, everyone's actually playing by the rules. But it's so much more than just keeping order. The Speaker enforces rules, yeah, but they also protect the rights of every single member of Parliament. And, crucially, they're supposed to maintain that delicate balance between the government and the opposition. They've got disciplinary powers, too. And then there's the big one. They get to decide if a bill is a money bill. Now, why does that matter? Well, that certification is a game changer. It means the bill can bypass the upper house entirely, which, as you can imagine, totally changes how a law gets made. And this quote, it really gets to the heart of it all. The idea is that the second someone becomes speaker, they're supposed to leave their party politics at the door. They become this neutral arbiter. I mean, their entire authority, their credibility, everything hinges on being seen as impartial. Okay, so if the speaker is supposed to be so impartial, what happens when they're accused of not being impartial, of being biased? This brings us right back to our big question. And you're about to see why removing them is so incredibly hard. It's like the Constitution built a fortress around the office, and for a very, very good reason. Yeah, and this wasn't some kind of accident. The process is designed to be tough. The people who wrote the Constitution, they really wanted to protect the speaker. They didn't want someone getting kicked out just for political reasons or, on a whim. The whole point was to protect the stability and the dignity of the office itself. So how does it actually work? Well, first you got to submit a written notice. Then everyone waits 14 days. After that, to even get the motion discussed, you need at least 50 members to back it. But here's the real kicker, the final hurdle. The resolution has to be passed by what's called an absolute majority. And that doesn't just mean a majority of the people who showed up to vote that day. Nope. It means a majority of the entire total strength of the House. That is a seriously high bar to clear. So with a process that tough, you have to wonder, how many times has this actually happened? In the entire history of independent India's parliament, how many times has a motion to remove the speaker even been tried? The answer is just 3. Yep, just 3 times. Once in 1954, again in 1966, and the last time was in 1987. And can you guess the outcome each time? They all failed. Every single one. It just goes to show you how difficult it is, both politically and procedurally, to get this done. That absolute majority requirement, it's proven to be a wall that, so far, no opposition has been able to climb. And this is where we get to the real heart of the issue today. You have this beautiful constitutional ideal of a completely neutral referee. But what happens when that ideal smacks right into the messy, intense reality of modern politics? This really lays out the two sides of the coin, doesn't it? On one hand, you have the ideal, an impartial guardian, someone who is totally above party politics. But on the other hand, you have the reality we see today. Constant accusations of favoritism, which leads to less public trust and, frankly, a lot of gridlock in Parliament. So what's really driving this gap? Well, there's this growing feeling that the Speaker's office itself has become politicized. Big decisions, on things like anti-defection laws or those money bills we talked about, are more and more being viewed through a political lens. And that just fuels more fighting and starts to break down all those unwritten rules that are supposed to make Parliament work. And here's the thing you absolutely have to remember. It really is all about perception. The Speaker's power isn't just about the rule book. It's about moral authority. And that authority comes from one simple thing: the belief, from both the politicians and the public, that the person in that chair is fundamentally fair. So, with all these pressures, where do we go from here? Is there a path forward? How do we restore faith, not just in the Speaker, but in the whole institution of Parliament? Well, let's take a look at a few potential ideas for reform. A lot of experts point to a few key things. First, it starts with the political parties. They have to actually agree to and respect the idea that the Speaker is neutral.
Second, we need more transparency. Why was a decision made? Explaining key rulings could go a long way. Third, just getting the government and opposition to talk more in a structured way. And finally, maybe it's time to write down some clearer rules for the speaker's discretionary powers so there's less room for interpretation.
And at the end of the day, the goal here is bigger than just fixing one office. It's about rebuilding trust in the entire system. It's about making sure our parliament is seen as credible and effective, because it's the heart of our democracy. You could say that the health of the speaker's office and the health of our democracy are, well, they're directly linked.
Which leaves us with one last big question to chew on. In today's world, which feels more politically divided than ever, can that referee ever really truly be neutral? Is that ideal still possible? Or is the speaker's chair just always going to be caught in the political crossfire? It's a tough one, and it's definitely something worth thinking about.